Well, the gifts are unwrapped. The stockings are unstuffed. Our ornaments are still on the tree. I don't know about y'all. I am not a... I leave my Christmas tree up through New Year's, man. I don't even think we took it down until February last year. But it is time for college football again. We hope you all had a Merry Christmas. We're heading to the new year. And, of course, this Wednesday night, we start the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. And I don't know about you, but these matchups, I'm excited, dude.
Hopefully these bowl games start to, really get better. I mean, we saw Georgia Tech BYU in a close game. Georgia Tech, just losing that game. ACC possibly only coming out with 2 wins this bowl season is unfathomable, but, with how the season has been going, kind of saw that coming. First round was pretty predictable, so this second round is going to be good.
We're actually really neck and neck, the three of us, me, you, and Isaac. You're obviously in the lead, going 18-13 so far in bowls, and then me and Isaac right behind, tied at 17-14. We have picked differently in the actual ESPN fantasy bowl picking thing a couple games, but this is technically the official one. So Joey, 18-13 so far. Me and Isaac, 17-14. So we've got some playoff games that we're going to get into. We're going to predict and preview for you because, man, like you said, the first round was just garbage. We obviously knew who was going to win 2 of those games. The only good game that really came out of that was the Alabama-Oklahoma game. Back and forth, Oklahoma blowing a 17-point lead, which has just become a playoff tradition for them at this point.
And depending on who you're a fan of, you could also argue Miami-Texas A&M being a good game only because it was a defensive matchup, really. And Oklahoma fans don't want to even think about that Alabama game ever again.
No, they don't. And I forgot to say this last week, but man, I would be so mad if I was an Oklahoma fan looking at Oregon playing JMU and Ole Miss playing Tulane in the first round. It's like, of course, they got to play a freaking historic juggernaut that basically can do whatever they want, whenever they want. Alabama has not had... I know it's only year 2 under Kalen DeBoer. I know they lost to Vandy last year, but they have not had a ton of losses, even under Kalen DeBoer, that's they could just do whatever they want, and they have been able to do whatever they want for years. And I thought that under I thought that under Kalen DeBoer, that would change, but it just hasn't.
It's changed in a sense, but the culture of Alabama is definitely different from when Nick Saban was running the team, but it's definitely still a powerhouse. Now, I will also say Oklahoma fans might be a little mad too, because debatably, Alabama shouldn't have been in that matchup against them with Notre Dame just being left out. But that's last week's episode. This week, we're focusing on something else.
That's right. We're focusing on the quarterfinal round of the playoffs. So let's jump right into it. Number 10, Miami versus number 2, Ohio State in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl on New Year's Eve. Ohio State has not had great luck playing bowl games on New Year's Eve. Really, I'm just talking about the last one they played against us in... us being Georgia. What was that? It was the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, 2022, and Georgia came through with the Midnight Miracle when Ohio State missed a game-winning field goal to go to the national championship. Anyway, this game does take place 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. Ohio State favored by 9.5. We don't really know, I think, at this point what we're getting from either team. Last year, Ohio State, they lose to Michigan, and then they come out and they just look like an absolute unstoppable force, a monster team. Nobody could beat them. They got up by 30 on Oregon before they even scored a point in the Rose Bowl in the second round, destroyed Tennessee at home. What does Ohio State look like this year coming out of a loss in the Big Ten championship? And let's remember, as a disclaimer here, no team that got a first round bye last year won a bowl game.
I think the question is both conferences, this is going to be a controversial thing that I'm saying. Both conferences are in a down year in a sense. Big Ten, yes, they have some of the top teams going into these playoffs, but the depth in which the Big Ten is, it's so thin right now. Meanwhile, ACC, we all know the ACC is just awful this season. So you really look at these teams, and both teams are trying to show that there's at least somebody in both of these conferences. They're trying to prove something here. Both teams being juggernauts of their conferences, and it's really coming down to who can show who has the better defense and whose offense can stay more consistent, correct? And really, it's tough. You look at Miami's I think I saw was 5-0 against ranked teams, 2 of those being against top 10 teams, I believe.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Ohio State, facing Indiana, but who else? Michigan, sure, but it don't even want to get into Michigan. But really, they haven't faced a real opponent, right? I mean, Texas at the beginning of the season, but Texas has had a weird year, and at the beginning of the season, they were not Texas whatsoever. And Miami having 2 losses to ACC teams where the ACC is down this year, but they also have very good competitive wins against pretty good teams like Notre Dame, for example, and Texas A&M in the last round. I'm interested. This is probably going to be my favorite game, possibly.
Yeah, possibly, because we just don't know what we're getting, right? Because Miami, too, they did beat A&M on the road, but it was a very defensive game because of the wind. It was 20-plus mile-an-hour winds. The goalposts were swaying in the wind. It was so windy. And even I saw balls just drop to the ground that were thrown because of the wind, man, just knocking it down. So, I mean, that really affects your play calling, right? So, Miami, just run the ball. Texas A&M, just run the ball. They wanted to use Mario Craver and KC Concepcion more. I know they did, but they weren't able to because the wind was so crazy. So now you're going into the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, right, in Arlington, Texas, AT&T Stadium, and you have 0 mile-an-hour winds.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they can keep up. There's some blue blood energy here. Obviously, this is one of those games where the helmets alone matter because of all of the history behind these matchups. We mentioned last week that Ohio State won a big game against them in a bowl game, I think back in 2003, and that was always a sore spot for Miami. So for this one, they won it back. So what's at stake for each program in this game, right? Ohio State, championship or bust expectations. They want to be the first Ohio State team to go back-to-back. Miami, they want we're back credibility, national respect, recruiting momentum. Really, it's a perception versus reality for Miami, right? Are they perceived as one of these best teams, or are they actually one of these best teams? So Ohio State, skill position depth in the wide receiver room and the running back rotation, right? You've got Jeremiah Smith. You've got Carnell Tate. Smith going 1,086 yards for 11 touchdowns. Bo Jackson, the running back, 1,035 yards, 5 touchdowns. So they've got a 1,000-yard receiver and a 1,000-yard rusher. Their ability to score fast, or they have the ability to score as quick as they wanted to on some of these teams, or they can grind drives. They've been able to do both extremely well this year. For Miami, can their defense generate pressure without blitzing? That's yet to be seen. Can their secondary keep up with these elite receivers, right? Because Miami's DBs, they're going to have their hands full, like I mentioned, with their wide receivers, Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Ohio State's defense, they've got the physicality up front. They've got speed at linebacker. Sonny Styles, he's got 81 tackles, 1 fumble, 1 interception this season. That's a big deal. That's something that Miami's going to have to look into, and the ability to take away explosive plays because they play so well on defense. Miami's keys, they got to protect the quarterback. Carson Beck has got to be able to throw the ball. They've got to establish some run game. Mark Fletcher, he's got 857 yards and 10 touchdowns on the season. Then they can win on early downs to avoid 3rd and long. That's what they've got to be able to do here in this game. So can Miami sustain the drives, or are they going to have to live on chunk plays? Because I don't know if Miami can live on chunk plays.
I think a big issue is although a lot of people are arguing, Miami's pass game wasn't there because the wind was an issue in the Texas A&M game. The big issue is Texas A&M also couldn't throw the ball all that much because of the wind, right? I feel like it would have been a completely different game if the wind was not a factor and Texas A&M was able to utilize their receivers. Now going into this game where wind is not a factor, and you got an Ohio State team whose offense, they have a lot of offensive weapons. Meanwhile, Miami, yes, they have one of the top run defenses in college football this season. I think, sure, take that out of the equation for Ohio State. You still have 2 dynamic, explosive wide receivers at Ohio State and a quarterback who, honestly, between the 2, Carson Beck and Julian Sayin, wins that battle for quarterback. I think Julian Sayin is a better, safer quarterback. Meanwhile, I'm interested to see what other weapons Miami utilizes other than Tony and Fletcher, right? And there may be instances where Carson Beck is leaned on a little bit more, his arm is leaned on a little bit more. What's going to happen when that happens, right? Because Carson Beck at Georgia wasn't the greatest at protecting the ball. Granted, Georgia at the time didn't really have the greatest receivers at the time.
So you start throwing into windows that you shouldn't be throwing in.
Yeah, but you're facing Ohio State, who is going to force you into throwing it into windows where either you make it or you screwed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Ohio State has that defense that can make Carson Beck panic.
Yeah.
Right. And Miami, I don't think, has faced a defense like this. Okay. And I'm really interested to see how the offense turns out compared to their defense.
Right.
Correct. I think both defenses are going to play well. But I think this is a battle of the offenses, and right now I'm seeing it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm comparing right now, and I'm seeing Ohio State have the upper hand in it, just with the amount of weapons that they have and the lack of weapons that I've seen throughout this season for Miami.
So you're taking Ohio State?
Yeah, I have kind of put my foot down.
Alluded to it, yeah.
And I've put my foot down though because I'm tired of putting hope in this conference right now.
The other thing I want to mention, too, is the depth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a game where at halftime it's close, Miami's keeping up, and then all of a sudden Ohio State and their depth take over and they just run away with it, right?
Yeah, I think that's a big issue with Miami. They have not really utilized anybody else except for those few key players, which is great, don't get me wrong. But they haven't focused on the future this season, I feel like. I feel like last season they focused more on, okay, what's next season going to look like? This season, it's almost seemed like it's all or nothing right now, which can be good. But when you have a matchup like Ohio State for your second game, that can be rough. And you have no depth going into this game. Meanwhile, Ohio State has one of the best, I'm not going to lie, one of the best rosters in college football. The depth within it, I mean, their wide receiver room, their quarterback room never seems to disappoint. Their defense has stepped up miles from seasons ago. So I think depth really does play a factor, especially in that second half.
There's also a narrative around Ryan Day and in this big game narrative. Now, he kind of squashed that and got over the hump last year by winning the national championship. Mm-hmm. But, before that, 2019 versus Clemson, they get this 16-point lead, they blow it and lose. 2020, they finally beat Clemson in the playoff and then lose to what was probably the greatest team Alabama has ever fielded. And then 2022, they make the playoff and they blow two 14-point leads to Georgia to lose by 1 point. So then 2023 and 2021 missed out on the playoffs because they couldn't beat Michigan, but they get their act together and they end up coming back to win the entire thing and have some very dominant performances in that playoff. Mm-hmm. And so now, though, you come to the Big Ten Championship and they lose again. So was it just the team for Ryan Day last year, or do they actually turn this around? Who knows? So keys to the game for me. If Miami wins, it's because they win the turnover battle, they hit the explosive plays, and they keep it close into the fourth quarter, letting their depth keep up all the way with Ohio State. If Ohio State wins, it's because their depth, like I just mentioned, is going to overwhelm Miami. Their wide receivers dominate one-on-one, which I think is going to happen, and the defense forces Miami into obvious passing downs. So with all that being said, I'm going to be right there with Joey. I'm taking Ohio State in this one. I want Miami. As a Georgia fan, I want to play Miami because I want to try to beat Carson Beck. That's just a personal thing.
Cool.
That's just a personal thing. But I do think that Ohio State, they just have the dominance, they have the depth, and I don't think that Miami is going to be able to play well. The only thing that I think that the biggest thing to me that they have going for them is that they're going to be able to finally play a game and prove themselves in a stadium with no wind in this playoff. And Ohio State had the bye week. And like we mentioned before, and we're probably going to mention this 2 or 3 more times, no teams that had a bye week last year won. Now, to be fair, too, one of those teams was Boise State. We knew they probably weren't going to win. The other one was Arizona State, who had a pretty solid football team last year, but got overcome by a really good Texas team. And then also Georgia, who, their starting quarterback was their first start ever. It was Gunnar Stockton's first start ever in a playoff game. And we're missing our starting left tackle against one of the best edge rushers in the country last year from Notre Dame. So weird situations there last year. Will that continue on in this year? I don't know. I personally, I don't think so, but we'll see.
I think, too, kind of going back to what you said about Ryan Day and big game situations, if I'm being completely honest, I don't think this is a big game. I wouldn't consider this a big game. I think, yes, the position that this game is being held, being quarterfinals, yes, that's important. But nobody really looks at Ohio State and they're looking at this game saying, "Oh, this is a big game. They have to,
Right. This is a much bigger spot for Miami than it is Ohio State.
Yeah,
This is a much bigger prove-it moment for Miami.
I think the lights are brighter for Miami than it is for Ohio State. I think this is another day at work for Ohio State. Meanwhile, Miami, it's a we got to give it everything we got, guys. So I don't think that comes into being a situation for Ryan Day this game. So that it's unfortunate, but I just don't see it. The ACC is so bad this year. So I just
Next one up, this is one that I think is kind of hard to pick, but we'll see. Number 5 Oregon versus number 4 Texas Tech in the Capital One Orange Bowl in Florida, 12 p.m. kick. Oregon favored by 2.5. And before we get into the actual defensive statistics and all that stuff that we want to talk about, Oregon has the longest number of miles traveled in this freaking quarterfinal. They got to go over 3,000 miles from the top of the northwest of the country all the way almost farthest south to Miami to play in Hard Rock Stadium.
They really need to put more playoff games out west. Especially for those teams like Oregon.
You got the Furbo Fiesta Bowl, but that's not going to the semifinals, and I think it's because of the way the rotation works. But to me, that would be good for Texas Tech and Oregon because it's kind of neutral for both teams. But then you look at I don't know how it really works. It's probably in a rotation, and it's just kind of like whatever worked out best.
I didn't even know that. I didn't notice that.
So Oregon, they're 3rd in strength of record and 14th in strength of schedule. So what is the significance of that to you?
When you watch this Oregon team, you don't feel super confident in how they're playing.
Especially not defensively.
Yeah, and you look at the teams they're facing, and you're like, oh, this isn't all that big of a deal. And then you look at that, right? You look at the strength of schedule being so high and the strength of record being so high, and you're like, well, that's not what I watched, right? So there's something going on in these football power indexes that I'm not seeing. But I feel like it's super important because that is the Oregon Ducks, right? They may not be winning in convincing fashion, but they're winning convincingly, apparently.
They're gritty, yeah.
So I feel like that's an important factor to look at, especially when comparing it to Texas Tech, because, look, the Big Ten...
Texas Tech sits in 7th in strength of record, but 54th in strength of schedule.
Exactly, and I think that the strength of schedule is the important factor here. The Big Ten might be down, but it is still one of the top conferences in college football at the moment.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Big 12, they're working their way up, but they're still not there yet, correct?
And it's hard to know, really watching a lot of the Big 12 teams this year, were some of these teams actually, good? Because I know that Arizona State right now is sitting at 9-3, but they were still a gritty football team. Same thing with Cincinnati this year. Same thing with BYU,
Yeah, and really I got to do more research on how they determine these things. But I feel, again, that is an important thing to look at and notice comparing these two teams, because you're going to look at these different stats and you're going to look at Texas Tech and be like, they've dominated all season. And you're going to look at Oregon and you're going to be like, they almost lost to Penn State with James Franklin. Granted, it was James Franklin who, fun fact, shouldn't have been fired.
No, should not have been fired.
But it's really hard to determine just looking at who the team is just by the eye test, right? This game, I feel like, comes down to the numbers and the statistics and really comparing, okay, who did they face and do they have common opponents? Do they have weaknesses that the other is really strong at, So these are important to me, every single part, including something that not a lot of people look at.
So, although going into this game, Texas Tech seems to have the more dominant team, how will they look against a top-tier defensive team, right? Texas Tech, they average 42.5 points per game and only giving up, on average, 11 points per game.
Mm-hmm. And that's awesome, correct? And it's really important to notice because they do have a dominant defense, But again, who are they facing?
Exactly. Are they clicking? Like, is everything just clicking together, or do they have weak matchups?
And I think the biggest games that they've played is really Utah and BYU, in which their offense really did show to be really good. I think the Utah game proved that their defense is in it, and their defense is legit,
And
at
they
least
got
for the
some
Big 12.
guys, bro. Like the Buckets of winner, Jacob Rodriguez, man, and all he's done for turnovers this year.
Absolutely.
And they spread the turnovers around. Like I think they are the top team for turnovers in the country.
They are one of the top teams for turnovers. I can't remember where exactly.
I think I said this last week. They don't just have Jacob Rodriguez.
No.
They have a ton of guys who get turnovers. They read quarterbacks extremely well. They constantly put themselves in position to either knock balls down, force fumbles, or just pick the ball off, right out of the air.
But the thing about Jacob Rodriguez is the fact that you have to worry about him to the point where you always have to have an eye on him. That's what's creating these opportunities for all the other players on this
Right.
Texas Tech defense, because where he is has to be known. And nobody else is really thinking, all right, we got to worry about all these other guys, because he is so dominant this year and this season for Texas Tech that he's creating issues if you're not careful.
So a big question here is, how is Dante Moore going to look against this defense? Because like we said, they can force turnovers like nobody's business. They can stop the run extremely well. They're very good at stopping the quarterback run. Bear Bachmeier did not do that much in either game, and he's a very mobile quarterback. We saw that against Georgia Tech. Dante Moore threw 5 of his 8 interceptions between Indiana, Iowa, and JMU, all who placed top 10 in defense. Now, of course, JMU's a little bit of it because they got a 122nd ranked strength of schedule.
yeah.
And they didn't play defense terribly, and the pick that JMU got, I think Dante just was trying to float something to the end zone under pressure,
Yeah.
and just that was just a dumb interception.
But it's still a stat line.
Of course. So Texas Tech, they ranked 3rd in defense this season, above all 3 of those teams that we just mentioned. So Moore is going to have to protect the ball. He's going to have to hold on when he goes to scramble, but that's another question. Is he even going to be able to scramble, right? So with this one, me and Joey had a conversation about this over lunch last week, talking about, I thought that Oregon's defense did not look good against JMU. And now JMU does not have a terrible offense, right? But they got way more yards than they should have. They got over 500 yards of offense. That's the most all season. Now, Joey's point to that was, the more that you score on offense, the more that you're giving the ball back to the other team and the more opportunities they get, right? Because, Oregon scored like 30 straight points. But I think that showed that Oregon has some holes. And just with the way that Texas Tech's defense has been playing and the way that their offense has been getting things together, it's a gamble, I think, but I'm going to go Texas Tech. I'm going to pick the Red Raiders here. I just think that they are doing some really good things this season. And I love Dan Lanning, and I think Dan Lanning is a big game coach. Truly, I do. I mean, as him, being our defensive coordinator for so many years. But I got to go with my gut here, and I'm going to take Texas Tech. And that's 2 games that I've picked the team that had the bye week.
I have never been super confident in Dante Moore and the Oregon Ducks this season. I think going into the season, I held them on a high pedestal. And then that Penn State game happened, and I was like, heck yeah. And then we really saw who Penn State was. Correct. Then you started to see some holes. And don't get me wrong, Dante Moore is still one of the top-level quarterbacks in the league this year. Although, when you really watch him, he's not all that impressive. I don't think he's the guy. Okay? I really don't.
You're not that guy, pal.
He's
You're not
not that guy. I think when he gets pressured, he makes some stupid decisions, which was shown in the Penn State game, which, again, Penn State is not Penn State anymore. Correct? They're going through the rebuild now. And Iowa, he didn't look all too great. I believe he threw 2 interceptions against Iowa, maybe 1. But I don't want to pick Oregon, but I feel that I have to pick Oregon here, because when it comes down to it, this is possibly the first real opponent that Texas Tech has faced. This isn't a Utah. This isn't a BYU. This is a college football powerhouse, really. And Dan Lanning wants to show that last year was a fluke in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't want to repeat. I don't think this is the offense to really go all the way, but this is an offense that can pull it out for this game and at least make it to the second to last round. So I'm going to pick Oregon here.
Now, this actually might be the hardest one to pick because I just don't know what either team is really going to look like. It's, of course, number 9 Alabama versus number 1 Indiana in the Rose Bowl, California, 4 p.m. kickoff on New Year's Day. Indiana favored by 7. And the reason I don't know what it's going to look like is because was the Oklahoma game just a fluke? Did Oklahoma just blow a lead off some dumb decisions and, penalties or whatever? Is Indiana's defense actually that good? Are they going to be able to do what Oklahoma couldn't? Are they going to be able to pressure Ty Simpson? We don't know these things, especially about Indiana, because even though they say that they have a 32nd ranked strength of schedule, we know that the teams that they have faced are not that good, right? So the question has to be asked, is Fernando Mendoza legit? And I'm going to ask you because I want to tell you some things, right? 27 of his 33 touchdowns, and he leads FBS in passing touchdowns. 27 of his 33 touchdowns came against Kennesaw State, a G5 team, Indiana State, an FCS team, Illinois, who's ranked 8th in the Big Ten, Michigan State, who's 16th in the Big Ten, UCLA, who's 12th in the Big Ten, Wisconsin, who's 15th in the Big Ten, and Purdue, who is dead last in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. Purdue only going 2-10 this year. The other 6 touchdowns he threw came against Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State, where he combined for those 6 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in these games. We know Iowa has a pretty good defense, Oregon, pretty good defense, Maryland, even though they weren't great, pretty good defense, and of course Ohio State has a staunch defense with guys like Sonny Styles, right? So what is this going to look like for Fernando Mendoza? Because Alabama, they got a big part of their defense back. They got LT Overton back. He's got 35 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks.
We can look at how Fernando Mendoza has done this season, and we can nit and pick how majority of his touchdowns came against a group of 5 or FCS or lower level FBS teams or lower level Big Ten teams, which it could be very easy, and it does hold a good point. I also got to point out though is that the teams you did name that he only had 6
touchdowns.
His other 6 touchdowns. Those are some of the top besides Maryland and Penn State. Those are some of the top 10 defenses in the country, right? So not a lot of people are scoring on him in the first place. But it does become a factor when going up against Alabama, who is also one of the top defenses this season. Granted, not the top and nowhere close to the top, but with everybody back on Alabama's defense, it does become an issue, especially for Fernando Mendoza, who hasn't played an SEC level defense like that.
Just a physical defense. And I will die on this hill. Mm-hmm. The SEC is the most physical league in the country.
Absolutely.
We have the most physical teams. And when you're playing in a league like that and you have a defense like that and you have to be able to keep up, the defenses are just elite.
But I will also point out, within the Oklahoma game alone, there were still a lot of stupid mistakes on Alabama's side of the ball for defense. And I think that can become a factor for Indiana to benefit Indiana, correct? Because Indiana's offense has been pretty dynamic this season. And even just to beat Ohio State, they had to, test new waters a little bit because that defense arguably is the best defense. But going into this game, I really think that Indiana's defense is what we're going to have to look at because
Agreed.
Alabama's offense is either make or break, correct? And I don't think, looking at the Ohio State-Indiana game, there was not as much pressure on Julian Sain as you would have liked there to be. And that's how you get Ty Simpson to throw the game, correct? Because Alabama's run, although whatever, they got a good bit of running in the Oklahoma game.
28 yards, but to be fair, Ty Simpson got sacked a couple times, so those yards,
That, but also, yes, they didn't have a whole bunch of yards, but those yards played such a big impact in winning that game.
The big runs that gave them the chunk plays to keep the clock moving and keep the defense on the field big time.
Keeping the defense honest, having them have to look out for that run game. Because, look, Alabama's offense is so one-sided.
Oh, yeah, live by the pass, die by the pass. That's Alabama.
That is how their offense has been under Kalen DeBoer. And unfortunately, although it's not like Nick Saban's era, that's just the way of Alabama football now. This offense can tear you apart if you cannot get pressure on the quarterback. And I think Ty Simpson is a great quarterback when he's not pressured. And I think Indiana is going to struggle against this Alabama front line because Alabama is known to have some of the best offensive linemen in the game other than Georgia. But
Bama, they bend versus top-ranked teams defensively, but they don't break. When the yards tick up, the points allowed goes up, but the situational stops and the turnovers keep them competitive because they have been good at turnovers, right? They got the big pick six against Oklahoma, which is really what turned the game around for them and just flipped momentum their way, right?
Wow, they got it, but also they were given it.
Right. And Ty Simpson, since you mentioned him, he took much better care of the football versus OU. So does that continue, right? So Indiana's total yards, they're averaging 295 yards a game versus top 25 teams. Opponents, they've averaged 225 receiving yards per game versus IU when they're ranked, signaling that elite quarterbacks and wide receivers obviously are exposing weaknesses in that coverage. Indiana, they're currently, though, averaging a turnover a game. But again, who have they played? They got an interception versus Ohio State. Good. But the other games versus not as great Big Ten opponents, right? And the games against the G5 and the FCS schools, what are they actually going to look like against this top team? I think that's the biggest question, right? So both these quarterbacks, they fold under pressure. Could this be a defensive game? Like you said, Bama was able to run the ball better against Oklahoma, but it has not been their offensive identity this season. The pass has been Alabama's offensive identity, and it will continue to be their offensive identity. They will live or die by the pass in this game. So can both defenses generate pressure? That's the question. I think whoever wins this game is going to be the one that can generate the most pressure on the quarterback. Alabama, they don't necessarily lead the nation in sacks, but the pressure rate from guys like Pierre is elite. He's generating pressure on nearly 1 in 5 pass rush snaps this season. Indiana, they're top 10 in pressure rate, but again, against who? I'm going to take Alabama in this game. I just, if I had to bet my life on it, right? I have to go with what I know and what I've seen. I have seen Alabama, live and die by the pass this year. And a lot of the times, they've lived by it because defenses can't get in pressure. I have no idea what Indiana's defense is going to look like against a top team with a really good offensive line and a really good pocket passer quarterback, right? Because that's what Ty Simpson is. Ty Simpson can escape the pocket, don't get me wrong.
He's got legs.
But he likes to stay in the pocket. He's most comfortable in the pocket when standing behind his offensive line. And I think if they can do that well, this game against Indiana, which I think that they can, then I got to pick Alabama here. So that's why I'm going with Alabama. But again, this comes down to me, who can generate the most pressure on the quarterback? That's who wins the game.
When it comes down to what you're saying, who can generate the most pressure on the quarterback, it's hands down going to be Alabama. I just don't see it coming from Indiana in this game specifically. But I also want to say, Alabama fans, stop hyping up Jam Miller. Stop. He's not it. He's not going to be the make or break of this game.
No.
It's really going to be, can Ty Simpson protect the ball?
Can his offensive line protect him?
And also, I hate to say it, can Ryan Williams catch the ball?
Yep.
Can he? So, with that being said, of course, I'm going to pick Alabama in this game. I hate saying it. I hate it. But Alabama actually is the more dynamic team in this game. They're the more explosive team, and they're just the stronger team. I think earlier in this season, there are plenty of episodes of me saying that Alabama is one of the best teams in college football. Yes, they took a dive, and last episode I was unsure of them. But if they continue this uphill climb, they could yet again be one of the best teams in college football this season.
And we have gotten to our final game of the quarterfinal playoff, the piece de resistance. No, I'm just kidding, because I think we all kind of have a really good feel on this game. For me, it's my favorite, obviously. It is number 6, Ole Miss, versus number 3, Georgia, in the Sugar Bowl, heading it down to NOLA. We played in this game last year, took on Notre Dame, Gunnar Stockton's first true start, and we lost. It's hard to win a football game when you give up 17 points in 25 seconds. I think we all remember how that went. Our left tackle, who was not good at the time, let their best edge rusher right through. Gunnar Stockton fumbled on the 15. Notre Dame scores in one play after scoring a field goal just on the drive before. So there's 10 right there. And then they run the kickoff back for a touchdown, 17-point swing in 25 seconds. I've never seen anything like it. This year, though, our defense is motivated. Gunnar Stockton has gotten a lot more experience than he was last year. Yeah, he's made some elite throws in elite games, and we've already beat this team once. So let's get into it. UGA favored by 6.5. The last matchup in Athens, Georgia did not punt once. It was very offensive, and we were the ones that got the first stop. UGA scored 17 points in the fourth quarter to overcome the 9-point deficit. One of the highest scoring games of the season. UGA won 43-35. So what is that? Almost 80 points?
Yeah.
That's a high-scoring game.
78.
Ole Miss's Trinidad Chambliss, though. He's one bad dude.
Gosh,
For somebody who just won, I think it was either the FCS championship last year or the junior college championship, and then he gets brought up to like one of the best offenses in the SEC. He was not even supposed to start. It was supposed to be Austin Simmons. Austin Simmons gets hurt. Trinidad Chambliss comes in and just runs the freaking offense, dude. And that was something like when I looked at this game, I was like, man, Trinidad Chambliss coming into one of the hottest SEC environments. He's not going to be able to do anything, and he proved me wrong.
I think that's also the scary thing about Ole Miss. Not only do they have Austin Simmons, who, don't discredit him, he is honestly a really good quarterback and could be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but Chambliss came out of nowhere. Yeah. And he is so fun to watch, and he plays such a factor in every single game, I feel like. And this game has to be his game.
Yep. He's an extremely mobile quarterback. He's only thrown 3 interceptions the entire year.
Mind you, he played a few less games than everybody else.
Sure.
But 3
still,
the entire year is
against
insane.
Some of the teams that Ole Miss was playing this year, that's
so
really good. 19 touchdowns, 67% completion rating. Yeah. That's really good. But I have to mention this. UGA's defense before Ole Miss, 307 yards allowed per game, 17 points allowed per game. After Ole Miss, through the SEC championship, 250 yards allowed, 11.7 points allowed per game. Mm-hmm. That's a big drop. That's a 6-point drop. That's extremely significant. So obviously the UGA defense is playing much better ball than they were at the time. So the Ole Miss game for Georgia was the pivot point. After that offensive shootout that it was, man, Georgia's defense tightened its identity, becoming one of the stingiest units in the country down the stretch, right? Against Texas, only 10 points allowed. Against Bama, only 7 points allowed off a receiver screen, and we gave them 30 yards in penalties on one drive. So it's hard to, keep a team out of the end zone when you're doing that. Mm-hmm. So how can Ole Miss win the game? What I wrote down here was literally play defense. Your offense has got it figured out, right? It's going to be hard to get it going against, what is probably one of the most improved defenses in the country. But Trinidad Chambliss can do it. Kejuan Lacey can do it. He can run downhill. We've seen it, right? Their defense is good, but they're not elite, right? So they allow about 340 total yards per game and 20 points per game. So that's solid, but it's not a shutdown unit, right? Mm-hmm. Stop the run. You have to stop the run. Georgia's offense leans on the run. It's what they do. Look at the Georgia Tech game. All we did was run the ball. But that is Kirby Smart's identity. Kirby Smart's offensive identity is run the ball, keep their defense on the field, constantly having to make big-time tackles against offensive lines that are opening up holes, and you tire out their defense. Mm-hmm. That's what it takes. Georgia right now is running 187 yards per game, but it's not the nation's best. It's efficient and consistent instead of explosive, which is, again, right up Kirby Smart's nature. Gunnar Stockton is also extremely mobile. He has 7 rushing touchdowns, and he has 1 of them against Ole Miss. So, also, Ole Miss has one of the best passing defenses in the country. You got to stop the pass. Opponents are averaging 182 passing yards a game against them, which is a top 20 mark nationally. It's pretty good. Mm-hmm. They tighten up through the air. Although UGA last game was able to make some big-time passes on them. And we just heard this week, we're going to have Colby Young back and Ethan Barber back, wide receiver and big-time tight end that we needed to get back for these games, right? Which, again, that's huge for the passing game. It gives so much more depth to the receiving core. So who do you trust in these big games, right? Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin. Yes, Pete Golding beat Tulane. Good for him. It's Tulane, dude. And you also gave up 400 yards of offense to Tulane. This is going to be a much tougher matchup. Trinidad Chambliss, he's been able to hold up under the pressure in multiple games this season. And I've said that. They even had a close game with Florida near the end of the season, and he was able to keep them in it, score points at the last second, and win these games, right? I have to give immense props to Trinidad Chambliss and what he's been able to do. Because the kid's story coming from like winning an FCS championship and basically just fitting in like a glove in Ole Miss's offense in the toughest league in the country. It's just been incredible to watch, right? Georgia has Kirby Smart, though. And I'm trying to leave my bias out of this, but it's Kirby Smart. Since 2021, Kirby Smart is 62-6. He's only lost 6 games.
Yep.
4 of them being to Alabama. 1 of them being to Ole Miss, and the other one being Notre Dame. That's it. All top teams in playoff games and big games on the road. In order to beat Kirby Smart, and Josh Pate says this all the time, so I'll attribute this quote to him, you have to cut the head off the snake. Ole Miss, they came to Athens. They were up by 9 points entering the fourth quarter. They gave up 17. You can't do that. You have to be able to hold on. You have to be able to cut the head off the snake, which is what Kirby Smart is so good at being able to fend off, because it's what he does. Defensively, he just chokes you. Kirby is also undefeated in rematches. He's already had one this year. This is the second regular season rematch Georgia's going to have this year. First one was against Bama. We won in the SEC chip. Now we got to play Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. So does history repeat itself?
This is a tough one. I feel like if Lane Kiffin was coaching this team, I would lean in Ole Miss's favor. Now, without Lane Kiffin, because he decides to screw every team that he has doing good, I'm really upset with Lane Kiffin.
Obviously.
Yeah. This Ole Miss team, I really have liked them throughout this season. Without Lane Kiffin running this team, I feel to be a whole different team. I don't think they're going to be as much of a threat offensively against a Georgia team. You need a high-level coach like Lane Kiffin to go against a Georgia team. I don't think Ole Miss has that, unfortunately. I think their defense is going to crumble. Offensively, I think they're going to be fine. Defense, you got to focus on one or the other, and defense, I think, is going to suffer against this Georgia team. So I have to pick Georgia here. I really don't want to, because this Ole Miss team has been so much fun to watch. But kind of like how last round proved, even though they're fun to watch and they're dynamic and explosive, you look at Texas A&M and they lost, right? And then you look at the Ole Miss Tulane game, and Tulane put a good bit of numbers on Ole Miss. So this is where you can be fun to watch, but you have to be good at football too. And I think without their head coach, Lane Kiffin, I can't pick Ole Miss.
Yep, and I have no problem picking Georgia, and that's exactly who I'm going to pick. I just think that Gunnar Stockton, when you're comparing the two quarterbacks, Gunnar Stockton, while they are completely different quarterbacks, because Trinidad Chambliss is a really big-time passer and he loves to escape the pocket, Gunnar Stockton is physical and loves to run. Like I said, he's already got his legs touchdown against Ole Miss this year. He had the 4th and 6th touchdown versus Tennessee that kept us in the game. He had some big-time plays versus Texas. He had some big plays versus Bama in the SEC championship game. He's been in close games and had to win. This year, I think he's just going to be ready and good to go. I think he's got a running back room that he can lean on. He's got wide receivers that he trusts, with guys like Zach Branch getting Colby Young back. You've also got Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky. I just think that overall, this Georgia team, they're really good, and I think that they're going to be ready to go. So that is me picking 3 out of 4 teams that had a bye this year in the first round, and we'll see how it goes. But I just think the circumstances this year are different for that specifically. I just trust Georgia. I trust Kirby Smart. Again, I love Josh Pate and the Josh Pate College Football Show, and I heard him say it today about this game. He's like, I'm picking Georgia for 3 reasons. 1, I trust Kirby Smart. 2, I trust Kirby Smart. And 3, I trust Kirby Smart. Yeah. And I think that 1, it's the safe pick. And I'm not saying Ole Miss can't win this game. I think if Ole Miss wins this game, they obviously win the turnover battle. They're able to shut down the run game, and they do extremely well in the pass game, shutting down guys like Zach Branch. But keep doing things that you do well on the pass defense, and then just play offense like you normally do.
And I think that's what hurts Ole Miss in this game, is because I know they're looking at this game and this matchup, and they're going, all right, we need to focus on this run, and we need to stop this run, because that's what hurt us last game. So we got to be true to stopping the run. And then the pass is going to open up. All right, we need to switch back up to what we're good at. We need to protect the pass. It's just that back and forth in which I don't think Ole Miss can do that and then also produce the way they have been on offense this entire season, because at the end of the day, their head coach is now defensive minded. Meanwhile, Lane Kiffin has always been this offensive minded coach, and he's put the defense onto the defensive coordinator, and they could focus solely on the defense. Now it's up in the air, right? Because you don't have this offensive mastermind in Lane Kiffin running the team. You have this defensive coordinator. I can't really say mastermind. This defensive coordinator now taking over the helm, and he's focusing on that defense. All right, what's happening to the offense now? Now, in comparison, I don't think Gunnar Stockton is the better quarterback in this comparison out of the two. I think he's the safer pick to choose.
Or I would say the more proven, only because of what he's shown and been able to do in big-time moments where he has to make a play.
Yeah, I think, though, that in my eyes, better quarterback is the quarterback that is the most explosive, and if you had to put the game on his back, he can win the game. And I think Chambliss is that quarterback, but this Georgia team isn't a team you can just put the game on the back of one man. And unfortunately, I just don't see Ole Miss coming out of it. Now, if they win this game, I think they could win it all.
Right.
Because I think this game determines the national champion, unfortunately.
Wow.
I really do. I think the winner of this game keeps continuing because Georgia is on that hot streak right now. It's almost like baseball. Once you get hot, it's really hard to get cold.
Yeah.
Unless you just run out of it. And I think Georgia has hit that hot spot, right? They beat Alabama in the SEC championship. Yeah, they have a bye week, but if they can prove that bye week does nothing to them and they can win this game convincingly, I have no issue choosing Georgia over anybody else within this playoffs, right? Who, like Indiana? No, not against Georgia. Alabama? No.
I think that you could see a third. It's possible. You could see, with the way that the things are working out right now, you could see a third.
Oh, you could see an Alabama-Georgia game again.
With Georgia-Alabama in the national title. Well, I can tell you the college football landscape obviously does not want that, but I can tell you Georgia fans want it because they would love to get some more bragging rights to say, like, because it's a tie, and I think Alabama fans right now would love to say that, and the tie being the regular season tie because we've gone 1-1 against each other in this season, right? So obviously there would be bragging rights. It would kind of, for Georgia fans, it's like kind of getting ourselves over the Alabama hump, truly beating them twice in the same season. And I think for Alabama fans, it would be trying to prove that they're still the dominant force that they were under Saban, that they're still the standard, because Georgia has taken a lot of that away from them at this moment, just because, we've won two championships sooner than they have. We've won back-to-back SEC championships. We've beat them in the SEC championship in Atlanta finally after years, right? Because they have the past, right? They can look and say, well, we beat you this year. Kirby is 2-8 or whatever versus Alabama in his head coaching career. We own you. In a way, yes. Yeah. In the past, you've owned us. Right now, I don't know, because you beat us on the road last year. You came into our house and won this year, but then we beat you in Atlanta in the SEC championship. So I don't really know, but either way, I think I agree with you. It very well could be UGA Bama again in the national championship.
And I know people are looking at me all crazy right now because, that also factors in Ole Miss. I'm saying that Ole Miss could win the national championship. Look at me crazy now, but like if Ole Miss can figure out a way to beat this Georgia defense that is hot right now and put a stop to this Georgia offense that has started to piece things together very well, I mean, who else can beat them, right? I mean, Ohio State, sure. But Ohio State has yet to prove that they can beat a real opponent. And then they got to face an SEC opponent who just beat one of the juggernauts in the SEC. I don't know.
And I'm telling you right now, the only way for it to happen is Ole Miss is going to have to figure out a way to play defense.
They
not
literally
just
have
against
to piece
the pass,
it together.
but also against the run game. And they're going to have to be able to stop our run game, which again is averaging like 182 yards a game. Like we are a run defense team, and that is the thing they can't stop. And it's what killed them in Athens earlier in the year, except for again a couple big passes by Gunnar Stockton, the man himself. So I'm gonna go with UGA here. I mean, I think UGA is obviously the safer pick, and I can tell you, Again, this is from Josh Pate, but FanDuel, their number one prop bet is UGA over 6.5.
I mean, that's fair. And again, I'm picking UGA in this game. I'm just pointing out, after making my pick that, I mean, now looking at it, I think Georgia is the only team with a run game in this playoffs. I mean, Miami, sure, but once they face Ohio State now,
yeah,
I think run has kind of lost its power this season, I guess.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these teams are throw the freaking ball, right? And now you have a matchup where it's Ole Miss and Georgia, who are two teams who run the ball extraordinarily well, and you can only have one.
Exactly.
So I don't know.
All right, well, these are the quarterfinal games, but they're not the only games being played this week. So we're going to jump into some bowl games. We're going to start out on Tuesday. We've got Coastal Carolina versus Louisiana Tech in the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. Louisiana Tech favored by 9.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take Louisiana Tech here.
I am also taking Louisiana Tech.
I'm surprised Coastal is in a bowl game. They have not had a great season this season.
Well, they got 6 wins, so there you go. That's all it takes, which is,
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised Clemson made a bowl game, but there's okay.
All right, we got a battle of the orange here. Tennessee versus Illinois in the Liberty Mutual Music City Bowl. Tennessee literally just gets to stay in Tennessee.
Yeah, I think I don't have all the information here for this game. I think if Tennessee has at least majority of their players still playing in this game, Tennessee wins this by a wide margin. But Illinois knows how to upset SEC teams, so.
That is correct, but I am also going to go with the inside of the pumpkin orange, that uncomfortable orange that you just can't sit in. If you haven't seen that video, please go look it up. It's
I really
some
don't,
Alabama fan talk about how he hates Tennessee back in like the year 2010.
Yeah, I really don't understand why they think they have the better orange.
I don't know. Anyway, I have Tennessee. Number 16, USC versus TCU in the Valero Alamo Bowl. USC favored by 6.5.
This could be a really good game offensively. I think I'm going to pick USC in this game. I think TCU has a few guys going into the portal already and not playing, so I think USC has more guys staying.
Including their quarterback. So
yeah.
I'm also going to take USC here.
Exactly. I think USC is going to be the team that wins this. Hate Lincoln Riley, but he's better than his brother.
Yeah, and he was able to win against Texas A&M last year. So
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, all right, now we're moving on to Wednesday. We got more games on New Year's Eve.
Whoop, whoop.
Number 23, Iowa versus number 14, Vandy in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Vanderbilt favored by 4.
I think this is going to be a frustrating game for Vandy because this Iowa defense is actually a legit defense. Meanwhile, Vandy can kind of sit back a little bit on defense because this is not a great offensive team in Iowa.
Yep.
Granted, better than years past. I think Vandy wins this game, though, because I know Diego Pavia still plans on playing this game. And if he's playing, everybody else is playing.
Yeah, you're right. So I'm also going to go with Vandy here. I love Diego Pavia. I know he's very controversial, but I love him as a player. He was my Heisman, and I'm going to pick him to win one more game before his college career ends.
Exactly. Keyword, love him as a player. Don't agree with everything outside of football.
You don't have to. And I
Exactly.
mean, the thing is, like, did he say some things that he probably shouldn't have and acted out? Yes. But did he kill anybody? No. Anyway. Arizona State versus Duke in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Duke favored by 3. This one's tough.
That is tough because ACC, again, potentially only 2 bowl game wins in this bowl season. Arizona State going through a kind of a rough year, but
and
still,
I believe their quarterback is transferring.
Sam Levitt is. I don't know if the guy who's been playing throughout this season hasn't been Sam Levitt, though.
Right.
So, that being said, I don't know. Duke's kind of high. I'm going to go Duke. I'll go Duke. I hate picking an ACC team because I just want us to crash and burn. But this season, just reset next season. But I think Duke is pretty hot this season.
Well,
at the end of the season,
the 2 ACC teams I've picked to win have both won. So
yeah.
I picked Louisville against Toledo, and I picked Virginia over Mizzou. Somehow won both of them.
Yeah.
And I even picked because I did pick BYU, so I didn't pick GT last week, and I was right on that. But I am going to pick Duke here with you as well. I'm going to continue on with the ACC teams that I think will win. I'm going to roll with the ACC champion here, dude. I think that they'll win. So next up, number 18, Michigan versus number 13, Texas in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Texas favored by 7.5.
Yeah, I think 7.5 is generous, especially with you got to factor in all the drama that's going on. Nobody can really focus at Michigan right now. They have no head coach. And
Well, they have Kyle Whittingham now that they hired him. So
yeah, but he's not coaching this game.
I mean, yeah.
Right. So I'm going to go Texas here. I think SEC versus Big Ten. SEC is going to win this, especially when you don't have a head coach. So
Hey, just because you don't have a head coach doesn't matter. I mean, the legendary Dabo Swinney just got beat by Penn State and their interim head coach. So that doesn't
okay.
always
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's fair. I think though that when it comes down to it, Texas is. I think everybody's returning back to Texas that can return back, and they're
Right.
playing this game. Meanwhile, you got Michigan players who haven't really determined whether they're going into the draft or they're going into their transfer portal or what's going on. I know Bryce Underwood. It really depended on who the the new head coach was going to be. I'm interested to see what happens with him, but I don't think he's going to play this game. So I'm going to pick Texas.
I'm going with Michigan, but only because like last year we said the same thing about Alabama, and Michigan literally just ran the ball on them nonstop. I don't know if Texas's defense in the bowl game is going to be able to do it. I have just not been confident in Texas. And to be fair, I haven't really been confident in Michigan either, but something about the run game and with everything going on there right now, I just think that, they might be fired up to go win a game. I think when stuff happens like this, teams are usually fired up to go win a bowl game.
And you know what? I'm actually going to switch my pick because Texas is not proven this season, and they've already played one Big Ten team, and they lost. Granted, it's Ohio State, but I am going to pick Michigan because, like you said, last year against Alabama for Michigan, and then this year, how Texas has been this season, I'm going to go Michigan.
And this is one of the first times this has happened, but we do have a rule on the podcast that as long as filming of the podcast has not ended, you can change your pick.
Yep.
So Joey has invoked his change of pick right on this show. Anyway, next up, we got Nebraska versus number 15 Utah without their head coach now in the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. Utah, though, still favored by 14, and I don't think Dylan Raiola is playing in this one, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell you I'm picking Utah.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting one. Not really. I think Utah wins this. I'm interested to see who plays quarterback for Nebraska because it could very much possibly be their starter next season. So it's a little sneak peek of what Nebraska fans are going to see next year.
Right.
So see what Matt Rule does, but I got Utah.
Moving on to January 2nd now, the day after New Year's, because on New Year's Day, we only have our playoff quarterfinal game. So next up, Rice versus Texas State in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Texas State by 13.5.
I haven't been really keeping up with either team, but I know Texas State I've heard that Texas State has had a pretty good season, and Rice has been pretty decent this year, but I've heard more about Texas State this year, so I'm going to go ahead and pick Texas State.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Texas State too. I mean, one team is 5-7, the other 6-6, so that kind of makes it a little bit difficult, but not really because I don't think Rice is going to be that great. So I'm right there with you. I got Texas State. Next up, and I think this one is actually a little bit difficult, but we've got Navy versus Cincinnati in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. Navy favored by 7.
This is Cincinnati's quarterback is
Brendan
entered.
Sorsby,
he's in the transfer portal. So that plays a big factor. Navy has also been very dominant this season. Granted, they didn't go to their conference championship because they had 1 or 2 losses more than they needed. But I think Navy has had a really good season this season, so I'm going to go ahead and pick Navy. I think without your star quarterback at Cincinnati, I don't know what to really give you there.
I picked against a service academy last week, and I was wrong. I'm not doing it again. Go Navy, anchor down. Let's go. Oh, wait, that's technically Vandy, I guess, but still, whatever. Anchors away, my boys. Anyway, so I got Navy. Next up, number 17, Arizona versus SMU in the Trust and Will Holiday Bowl. That sponsor's got to be like some type of like life insurance company. I've never heard of Trust and Will.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I think this game though is a very interesting one. I've heard a lot of people be split in this decision here. ACC, Big 12. Arizona has had a really good year this year, and SMU has kind of had a down year. Granted, Jennings really did have a phenomenal year this year, even though he had no backup whatsoever. No support, no offensive line. No. I'm going to pick Arizona.
Wow. I did not see that coming. I thought you would actually go with the ACC team like I'm going to do. Again, I'm rolling with SMU here. I trust Jennings.
But who else do you trust? That's the issue.
This may be a bad pick. I don't know. But it's just a gut thing, and I got to go with SMU here. All right, Wake Forest. This is actually the final bowl game we're going to pick. But we do have one more game to pick. You'll see. Anyway, Wake Forest versus Mississippi State in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Mississippi State favored by 3. Wake Forest not even having to leave the state. This is one of our favorite bowls. It's at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. It's just funny. Dude, I don't know how the coaches don't get like a concussion from getting the mayo just like dropped on their head.
Yeah, I don't know. It's wild.
Oh my gosh.
I think this is tough.
I think this is one of the toughest bowl games we've had to pick.
Because
both are mid.
Well, here's the thing though. Mississippi State started out the season really hot and looked like they were going to be one of a pretty dominant team, or at least a team that could shake up the SEC. Meanwhile, Wake Forest, I don't even know what to think of them, right? They were not good, but they were not bad. They won their games. I think when it comes down to ACC versus whoever, I'm going to pick the other team, Mississippi State.
Yeah, I agree. I am also going to go Miss State here. I just trust Jeff Lebby and the boys, and I think he's building something special there. And
he really is. He just needs to win games.
Yeah, I agree. And he's in one of the toughest conferences. I actually like the culture that he's building there. So, I trust him. So anyway, this is our last game we're going to pick right here. This is not a bowl game, but it is the FCS National Championship. We've got Illinois State versus Montana State. Montana State favored by 10.5, and I think I already know who you're going to pick.
Yeah, Montana State.
So I am also going to pick Montana State because I picked Montana last week. I'm not picking against Montana State again. I got the boys from the state of Montana. I think they're the Bobcats or the Mountain Lions.
They're the Bobcats,
Bobcats,
I think.
Sure. Yeah, the Montana State Bobcats. And guys, the FCS stuff is actually really fun. Like I actually love watching it. Like and people are like, well, nobody would watch a G5 playoff. It's like, bro, if I'm sitting here like spending my time watching the FCS playoff, I'm definitely gonna watch the Group of 5 playoff.
I mean, let me be real. When you watch FCS football, they are playing for something. It's not money. They're playing for an opportunity to go up to a G5 or a Power 4 team. They're playing for an opportunity to continue playing football, right? Meanwhile, you look at FBS level and they're playing for money. They're looking, Group of 5 is looking for a Power 4 team to pick them up, whatever. They're looking for more money. FCS players, they just want to play football, dude.
Oh, yeah.
So, and they're looking for an opportunity to be recognized. That's why I feel like FCS football has moments where it's better than FBS. Just a few moments. And Montana State is a spinning example of that these past 2 years. I think North Dakota State has put FCS on the map, South Dakota State as well. But Montana State, man, they're fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, dude. And you're playing, like you said, you're playing for bragging rights. You're playing for an opportunity to go play at a higher level. And, I know we've had so many conversations about, should the G5 be in their own playoff? And we're not going to get into that today. But I'm just saying, I think there's a market for it. I think it could happen. And, not only that, transfer portal fixes, NIL fixes. We didn't get to talk about this last week, but I liked what, we kind of said with NIL. I think that there should be able to, in recruiting, you can say, hey, you can come to this school and make this NIL deal. We have these, packages that we can give with these specific, sponsors or whatever. But don't say hey, we're gonna pay you, $20,000 or $2 million or whatever to come.
I'm gonna give you $20 million to play.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually paying players out of a budget. I think that's so dumb. That should not be allowed. But I think that players should be able to get paid for name, image, and likeness deals, like with NCAA football or whatever sponsorship deal you have. That's the kind of thing I think should be able to do that. Being able to see Bryce Young in the Heisman Nissan commercials before he even graduated college. That was groundbreaking.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome.
Which was awesome. That's the kind of thing that NIL should be. Not hey, we're going to pay you to come play here. That gets rid of loyalty. It just perpetuates the transfer portal more. I'm not a fan of that. But those are the kind of things when we talk about how to fix college football, those are the kinds of things we think about. But, we've got some really exciting quarterfinal matchups here. Some things that we're not even how the heck, who is going to win this game? How is it going to go? How is this team going to win? What are the ways this team can win? Because there's so many unknowns, but that's what makes this round of the playoffs so tangible and fun to watch.
I think we're getting to the point where, yes, it's sad that we're getting to the end of the season, but we're finally getting to see the great teams play against each other, and we're about to see some great football. Hopefully, maybe not Alabama, Indiana, but
We'll see. We don't even know. That's the thing. We don't even know.
that's
We'll see.
the thing, though. We just don't know what's going to happen, and that's the best part about college football this season is we just don't know. Except for the first round, we knew, but
Yeah, they knew.
they knew. But I'm excited to see where the rest of the season goes, man. This playoffs, and I could care less about the rest of the bowl games, but the playoffs is really what's exciting for me in this season of college football, because now we're at the point where we don't know what's going to happen and who's going to win. Anybody could win at this point, if we're being completely honest. Anybody could win it. Anybody can get hot at the right time. So I'm excited to see what happens. And always remember,
No matter what team you pull for, if you're on God's side, you're always on the winning team. Just know that there is a Father in heaven who loves you, who created you, and who wants a relationship with you. The gospel can be summed up like this. The gospel is a word that means good news, but not just any good news. It was the good news that they would bring from the battlefield, declaring that the war had been won. And what war has been won? The war against sin and death. You see, Jesus took the cross for your penalty and my penalty, and he paid that penalty so that we could be reconciled to God. And then not only did he die, but he rose again on the third day, forever defeating death and sin. If you want to have that, the Bible says that all you must do is confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus is Lord, and believe that God raised him from the dead on the third day. Please repent and believe the gospel. It has changed our life in the best way possible. It is the most important decision you will ever make. If you ever have any questions about that, you can always reach out to us on our comments on this YouTube video, or you can hit us up on our DMs at TBDCFB on TikTok and Instagram. We love to talk to you. We're praying for our listeners. We hope that you had a very Merry Christmas. We hope you have a great New Year. And guys, we will see you next week.
bye-bye.
Later.